Hello and welcome. My name is Andy Crook and my mission is to help garage owners become more successful in business. I'm your host for tonight's training on the subject of think deal or no deal. Every week I deliver free business training to help garage owners become more successful in business. That's the whole purpose of these videos. Hopefully those that are joining you will have seen the first video on habits, because this is the second in a series of videos on habits, largely based on Stephen Covey's excellent book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you haven't read the book, I recommend getting it and having a read. This is just my take on some of the ideas in the book and how I think of them in terms of the garage business. In the previous training on habits, we looked at habits 1, 2, and 3, and they're all about going from dependency to independence. Habits 4, 5, and 6 are focused on developing teamwork, collaboration, and communication skills, and moving from independence to interdependence. So, what we're going to look at today is habit number 4 from the book, which is think win in Stephen Covey's language, or as I prefer to think of it in the garage business, is deal or no deal, based on the very successful TV program hosted by Noel Edmonds. I often have this game playing in my head when I'm dealing with customers. Are we going to deal or is it going to be a no deal? Not every customer that phones up is suitable for you. You might not be the right business for them. They might not be the right customer for you. Now, it takes a bit of getting used to this idea that you may have to refuse the deal on some occasions. It's all to do with interdependent relationships, and we've got to commit in business and in our personal lives to always being in win situations. A win situation is one where I would accept the deal. It's one that is mutually beneficial and satisfying for both parties, and that is the whole principle of fair exchange. A fair exchange is where both parties are satisfied and benefit from the transaction or the behavior or just simply the time spent together. That is what we're working towards in Think Win, the 7th habit in Stephen R. Covey's book. So, Stephen R. Covey says there are 6 paradigms of human interaction. So, that's all big words and sounds a bit fancy, really, doesn't it? What is a paradigm in simple words? A paradigm is a standard, a perspective, or a set of ideas. What Stephen Covey's saying, he says basically there are 6 perceptives or perceptions when we have human interactions, or 6 ideas of what's going on. And I'll go through all of them in turn and then we'll discuss them in a bit more detail. So the first one is win, what I would call deal. The second one is win-lose. The third one is lose-win. The fourth one is lose. The fifth one is win. And the sixth one is win or no deal. And it's that one that's probably the most important. Let's look at these in turn and in a little bit more detail. Win, deal. This is where both parties win. This is the ideal situation. Agreements or solutions are mutually beneficial and satisfying both the business and the customer. Or, if we're talking about how this applies to you personally, in your personal life and in interactions with other people, within your business, with your staff, if you're leading people, this is where whatever you decide to do is win for both parties. That could be a business to customer relationship, a leader in a business to a member of staff, or it could be just in your life, friend to friend. So this is what we're aiming for most of the time, is win, deal. Win-lose. If I win, you lose. Win-lose businesses use their position, power, and credentials to get their own way. It's the same for people. Yeah, they might do it by force of personality, but what they're doing is they're getting what they want out of the transaction at the cost of the other in that transaction. Now, there are businesses that operate under these circumstances or using this standard. I argue this is probably not a great way to do business. Nor is the second or the third one, lose-win. If I lose, you win. Lose-win businesses are normally startups. They are basically using what so-called loss leaders, where you're doing the job for less than it costs you just to get some traction in the market, to get going, if you like. Yeah. And lose-win business transactions take place when the business is too quick to please or appease and seek strength from popularity or acceptance. So this is where you might be in a weak position, and therefore you do a job even though it's going to cost you more than you're going to gain, just to gain popularity. So that's a lose-win situation, and no business can sustain those. It's the same in transactions with people. And that doesn't have to be an exchange of money here. It could just be when you're asking someone to do something and it's costing you more and they're gaining more. It's exactly the same idea. Lose-lose. These are terrible situations to find in, and we've all been there. If you're in the garage business, you've definitely had a lose-lose transaction go on. Both parties lose. When two win-lose people get together, that is, when two determined, stubborn, ego-invested individuals interact, the result will be lose. Diagnostic jobs that go wrong is a great example of a lose. So if you think about it now, you've got two people or two businesses or a person and a business, and their normal paradigm is win-lose. They always want to come out on top. They want it at the cost of the other person. When these two people come together, or a business and a person comes together, the only outcome can be lose, because nobody can win. So think about that diagnostic job that went wrong. Yeah. So invested loads of time that you couldn't charge for. What you did charge for, yeah, the customer really didn't get the outcome they expected. Yeah, so you fitted some parts, you've gone to the customer and said, look, we have to charge you a certain amount. You haven't fixed their car. You've lost an enormous amount of time and probably money. The customer's had to pay out something, if that's the way you went down that road, and still hasn't had their car fixed. That's a great example in the garage business of a lose transaction. We want to avoid those. Then we have win. People with the win mentality don't necessarily want somebody else to lose. That's irrelevant to them. They don't care. What matters is they got what they wanted. Never a great place to be in business, to put your prices up so you win, but you don't offer any more value. So it doesn't matter to the other person, to you, whether they are losing out or they're gaining. You just want to make sure you're winning. And what you've done here is you've looked at costs maybe recently and you've just put your prices up, but you haven't done anything else about it. That's an example of win, but we don't care what happens in terms of the other side of the transaction. That isn't fair exchange. So the final one, win or no deal, or as I like to call it, simply no deal. So if you have watched Deal or No Deal, this is where the banker offers the contestant a certain amount of money for their box. Nobody knows what's in the box. We know what's out there in the game if you've watched it, and then the contestant has to make a decision, and they either deal or no deal. So this is if you like, this game is the entertainment version of Think Win from the Stephen Covey's book's perspective. Win, win or no deal. If you can't reach an agreement that's mutually beneficial, then do not agree the work. No deal. This is where we go no deal. This is very difficult if you're not used to saying no, and you've got this kind of a belief system that whereby all work that comes through the door must be taken on. We haven't got the luxury, or you think you haven't got the luxury of deciding whether or not we're going to deal with someone. Out of all those 6, the best option is to create win situations. Because with win-lose or lose-win, one person appears to get what they want for the moment, but the results will negatively impact on the relationship between both parties going forward. And we don't want that in business. Yeah. The win or no deal option is really important, because when we have no deal as an option, it liberates us from needing to manipulate people or push our own agenda or accept deals that are not in our best interest. Once we understand that we can say no, yeah, we can be open and really try to understand any underlying issues when we're dealing with other people, or why that customer possibly isn't the right customer for us. When we get to this position, we have to decide whether or not we're going to take on work, and we should do this in every single transaction in the business, and every time we're asking something of a member of staff. We always want to be in a win situation, win deal. Yeah, but we always must consider factors when we're making this decision. There is the factor of consideration, and there is the factor of courage. To be in a win situation, we must have high courage and high consideration. We must stick to our principles from our side, and we must consider the other party's needs and wants as well. So if we were to be in a win-lose situation, what we're for you is we're high on courage, but we're low on the consideration of the other party. Yeah. If we have a lose-win situation where we lose, they win, we have low courage because we're just afraid to say no, but we're considering our needs over the customer. And what is the worst situation is when we have low courage, we don't want to say no, and we don't really consider the outcome for the other party. So when we go for win, we have to be nice. We have to consider the needs and wants of the other party, but we also must be courageous. And that's what Stephen Covey says in his book. This habit of being considerate and considering the needs of others, whilst also being courageous enough to consider our own needs when we're making these decisions, takes quite a bit of personal bravery, if you like. What about when we say no? What is the fear of saying no? There are certain self-limiting beliefs that all business owners have, and we actually self-sabotage on many occasions because of these self-limiting beliefs. And one of them is we operate with what I would call a scarcity mentality. We act as if there isn't enough work to go around, that if we don't get the work, somebody else will, and that means we're going to lose out. But it really isn't like that. It really isn't. There isn't, and you ought to change your viewpoint from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality, meaning that you only take on work in a win situation. When it's an absolute no-brainer deal, that's when you do the work, because there are other garages that can do the work when you lose and they win. And if it's lose, you really don't want to get involved in those transactions. Yeah. If you think about it, if you have an abundance mentality, that is, there's plenty of work to go around, there'll be another customer ringing in a second, there'll be another email inquiry, I can decide whether or not I'm going to take this work on. You have to believe that there is enough to go around. And believe you me, there is enough to go around. If you don't believe me, have a look at how much capacity you have, then how many cars are in your town or in your borough, and then check it out and divide the number of garages by the number of vehicles. There's plenty to go around. You just need to attract the right types of customers, whereby it's always win, therefore deal. And it's not as easy as you think, and it's all about building the right culture within your business, attracting the right customers, birds of a feather flock together, and all of that stuff. And then your marketing's got to be spot on, and you've got to put out there what you want to get back. What you've got to remember is, when it comes to building interpersonal relationships, the more genuine you are in character, the higher your level of productivity will be. The more committed you are to win deal, the more powerful your influence will be on others and your customers. You must act congruently with your beliefs and your values. You can't put on an act to do this stuff. You need to understand what your beliefs and values are. And most of us don't. We don't spend the time to look at what we actually stand for, what we believe in, and we go around behaving in a manner that isn't sometimes congruent with those beliefs. We need to have the courage to stand up for what we believe in. Have that as our culture within our business and attract the right customers. To achieve win, to get loads of deals, we must focus on results, not on methods. We must focus on problems, not on people. Lastly, the spirit of win can't survive in the environment of competition. As organisations, we need to align our reward systems with our goals and values, and have systems in place to encourage win situations for our staff, our customers, and the directors. Hopefully this video has been of some interest, and it's changed your perception or your paradigm on human interactions. If anything I've covered in previous training has made you think about how you run your business, I've my job. If you think you need more help or support to implement changes or improve your business, simply direct message me. We'll jump on a Zoom call and I'll see if I can help you and your business. Remember to put first things first. If you think you should, you must. Have a good evening. Hopefully it has been of some interest. Good night.